Hi, my name is Hector Del Castillo, Chief Product Officer at BoldPM, and I'd like to welcome you to today's chat. Today, our guest is Charlie Birney, and he is founder at Podcast Village, and today's topic is podcasting made simple. Charlie, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Hector. Thanks so much for having me. You and I have known each other for a long time. This is the first time I've gotten to work with you like this, so I'm terribly excited.
All right, sounds great. Well, tell us a little bit more about yourself and also about your company, Podcast Village.
Sure. Very briefly, I'm a fourth generation Washingtonian. There are not a lot of us out here. Worked in over 25 years in property management and commercial real estate in the Washington, D.C. area. I was involved in building Queenstown Harbor Golf links and a lot of real estate stuff, and have founded the Brick Company's corporate charity, the Brick Companies Foundation. And before I left the Brick Companies, amicably, we raised over $750,000. So I've done a whole lot of property management and corporate relations as such, and then ended up founding Podcast Village, which is when I met you. So
Perfect. And what is it what triggered the founding Podcast Village?
Well, after I left the Brick Companies after 27 years, I ended up at one of their properties in Gaithersburg. They had their first attempt at a co-working concept. We've all been to WeWorks, et cetera. It's called Launch Workplaces. That's actually where you and I met. And I was out there. The genesis for using some of the tools that I hadn't developed yet to communicate came out of that configuration. In other words, there were a lot of people all around the suite doing different things. We weren't all answering phones for an insurance company or real estate or what have you. So every one of them had a different story that they could tell. My friend Jeff Davis, shout out to Jeff Davis, was doing some advanced promotion for Launch Workplaces. And he and I had traded stories about social media and how to use this and what's a Twitter over the years. And it came to me in a flash, let's do a podcast where we interview all these different people in this co-working space. That's the genesis of Podcast Village. And that's evolved into a full-blown media and production company today. It's been a lot of fun. So I started out, did a few interviews with you. They're still available on SoundCloud. And with Jeff Miller, you all were my first two clients in MZ, and started doing podcasting professionally. And this is some years ago when I still had to explain to everyone what was a podcast. And that, of course, has all changed quite dramatically today. But it's been a lot of fun, and you've been around to watch a lot of the renditions of Podcast Village.
Sounds great. Now tell me, how has your clients changed over time? Because you've been expanding now, and now you have two different locations in DC.
Yes.
What type of segments are you mostly working with when it comes to podcast services?
Well, it's a fascinating question. And early on, I remember meeting an executive in Montgomery County who wanted me to pick a segment to podcast about, I don't know, home renovations or home sales or medical things or environmental things, et cetera. And I looked at her and thought, I didn't say anything, but I looked at her and thought, why? Why would you limit yourself? We're talking about communications on all spectrums. So my ideal client, to answer your question, Hector, is someone or some group who are intrinsically interested in communicating. Because the advantage of podcasting, whether it's video or audio, is it's an incredibly direct form of communication. Back when I only talked about audio, I stressed the fact that you could hear the emphasis in my voice when I talk. You can hear the passion. And that's what I think this form of communication gives to you, is the ability to try to relay your message passionately. And we've evolved into, let's see, I lost my train of thought there, Hector. I'm sorry.
No, don't worry about it. So basically you were talking about
yeah. So my best customers are ones who want to communicate, irregardless of sector, irregardless of profession. They're people who are interested in passionately getting their message out, whether it's to their circle of influence or outside that circle of influence, whether it's to inside a company or the clients or vendors of that company.
Great. Sounds
communicators.
Great. Yeah. Yep. I understand. What about, how did you get the idea to write your book, Podcasting Made Simple?
Well, I appreciate your asking that. I had a lot of fun with that. I had always my greatest hero, Hector, as you know from knowing me for a little while now, is of course my father, Arthur Birney. He was a nautical navigator. He was a sailor and he was a navigator, which is a pretty good gig. When all of your electronics, we're using all of these electronics here today, when they pack up, you have to use a sextant, if you're familiar with that device, in order to tell where you are on the globe. And Dad had read many books on navigation, sunsight navigation, and found them all to be incomprehensible. So he wrote one. I remember as a little boy, my dad wrote a book. It was called Noonsight Navigation. And I always wanted to be like my father. So at some point I thought, why don't I write a book on podcasting? Meredith Eaton, who runs Eaton Publishing, was giving a short lecture at Launch Workplaces about the benefits of writing a book. My friend Hilda Labrador Gore, who does the Wise Traditions podcast, you know Hilda, and I sat next to each other and listened to Meredith talk about the benefits of writing a book, and we decided that we would do it together. So I got very excited to do a project collaboratively, which is always fun, to use some of my drawings of podcasting in it as part of the book. And now I'm able to say I'm a self-published author.
Sounds great. So you not only wrote the book, but you also included the illustrations in the book. Is that right?
Yes, for some reason, even with my earliest clients and my iPad 1, while I was producing and recording the sessions, I would generally sketch. I'm an inveterate doodler. Yes, it's true. So always trying to figure out how to use these sketches in my work somehow productively, and I use them as some of the illustrations in the book. Yes.
Okay. Sounds great. And talk about a little bit about this upcoming virtual workshop that we're doing together, and what's in it for the audience as far as, why would they attend it? What are they going to be getting out of that 2-hour action-filled workshop?
Well, obviously, thank you. Obviously, Hector, I hope that we can address some of the basics. The book Podcasting Made Simple covers the basics, what you might need to make a simple studio, the things that I went through when I was first developing what I call Podcast Village version 1.0, and how you can make good sound, because everything is based in good audio. Even if you and I are making video today, everything is based in good, clean audio. So we're going to cover the basics of podcasting, some of the things you think about how to make a show, some of the generally accepted ways a show is built. But we'll also talk about the creative aspect. And as Podcast Village, and I've mentioned this to you many times in our talks, has developed, and now Podcast Village 3.0, one of the most exciting parts is how we help people develop their concepts. So I hope that during this time we can not only show the amazing value that audio or video can have for you with your client body, with your customers, with your friends and family, but also how to refine that idea and make it better, because this collaborative process that I referred to with Hilda, it made things better. And one of the things we find at Podcast Village during one of our first meetings with a new client is we all focus very diligently on these projects, try to pick them apart a little. Sometimes the focus and range and clarity of audience can change from a conversation like that, like any good idea will. So I hope we can help all of the media out resources to refine their projects and maybe get to the next level of concept if that's what you're trying to accomplish.
Sounds great. It sounds exciting, and I'm looking forward to actually doing this together with you. So I hope that this will be something that the audience will be. From my point of view, I think right now there's a lot of people who are either unemployed or underemployed, and many, even more, I think, that are currently unhappily employed. And often it's about, figuring out how to actually tell your story in a way that you test to see if anybody actually gets it, right?
That's exactly right.
And that is really all about, is basically about having a powerful story about yourself and what you've done, where you've been,
exactly right,
and where you're going next. And that should help you in your career. That to me is most important, because often it's hard to package when you have a couple of decades of experience into one, page resume or a 1-minute conversation with someone when you're doing the interview. And I think this actually helps in having everything well thought out in order to actually do this and do it in a way that comes out natural and that is truly authentic.
Yep, absolutely. Looking forward to it, Hector.
Yes. So thank you so much. And thank you for being a great guest today, Charlie.
Thank
And
you.
looking forward to seeing you. And audience, I
Okay.
want to thank you for listening and viewing this, and would encourage you to sign up for our upcoming virtual workshop. More information is going to be shown here as to how you can actually register, learn more about it, and reach out if you have any questions. And once again, Charlie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Hector. Thanks so much. Looking forward to it, folks.
Sounds great. Be safe.